everybody, welcome to another Tipsy Tagalongs podcast. I'm Gary Moore with Jerry Moore Often and Tipsy Tagalongs, and I have with me Chris from Crimson Lane Vineyards. This place is fantastic. You can see the view in the back. Imagine it's this good right now. Imagine what it looks like when the weather is clear. It's crazy if you think about it. All right, public service announcement. Drink responsibly. Everybody needs you to know to drink responsibly. I start out every podcast this way. Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and do anything stupid. Just drink responsibly and have fun while you're drinking. You know, if you need, get an Uber or have a designated driver, but drink responsibly.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, Chris, I'm so glad to be here. This is actually great. I feel like I'm in like the living room. You know, it's comfortable. Yeah. It's a great setting to drink wine. And so I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have because we'll find all about Crimson Lane. And this place, by the way, is huge. so this is like a microcosm of the entire place because over here on this side is a patio that has, I think, 5 or 6 tables there. You've got tables on this side. You've got another room over there. So you've got plenty of place, and there's an outdoor patio, right?
That's true. Yeah.
There's an outdoor patio. It would have been a little chilly out there today.
It would have been very chilly.
Yeah,
because we moved in.
Because I think it's 48 degrees right now, and 48 is the high.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we opted not to do that because this seemed a bit cozier due to the weather.
Yeah, we're sitting here in our wine club members' room, which no one knew today except us. We love the space and kind of cozy little corner here in our little living room vibe area.
I'm very excited. So why don't we talk about the first wine, and then we'll go further into like the vineyard itself, and just talk about acreage and bottles, and all that good stuff. But what do we got here?
Totally. So obviously today we're going to take through a number of wines. We're kicking it off with the first wine on our estate tasting. It is the 2023 Petit Manseng. Petit Manseng, if you or your listeners are familiar, it's a grape from the south of France, but it's showing some real promise here in the Mid-Atlantic. It is a very versatile grape in the vineyard and in the winery. It's thicker skin, looser cluster variety, so it can handle that Mid-Atlantic, the tougher summers and falls that we might have. Other years it's doing fantastically as well. This is the first wine from the 2023 vintage that we put on our menu. 2023 and this past vintage 2024 both drought years for us.
Wow.
So what that means is lower yield, but it also means much higher quality fruit. So we're getting really beautiful fruit as we come into the fall. A lot of great ripening opportunity, both high sugar levels, beautiful phenolic brightness of the fruit. And our winemaker Dominic Pugliese decided to go for a drier style Petit Manseng. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's a versatile grape, so you can go anywhere from this very dry, pressed a little earlier, a lot of right acidity, and then if you let it hang longer than this, the sugar levels are really going to raise in the grape, and you're going to get demi-sec, and that's what we did in 2022, followed demi-sec, but you can also let it hang much longer and go for late harvest on this wine. It's a very durable grape, like I said, so that the acidity, sugar, the structure of the grape is going to retain, so you get a lot of options in the vintage.
Yeah, and one of the things that are interesting about regions in particular is that you got to find the grapes that work. You can do whatever you want. You can bring any vine in that you want, but it may not work because the weather is specific, and the hills are specific, the soils are specific. It's rocky versus sandy, or all those conditions determine whether or not it's going to work. So when you find a grape that works, you want to lean into it and make it happen. And it sounds like this is really versatile, depending on what your mood is that year, how you want to produce it, and you want to make it something that's like super dry like this one. It's got a really nice.
A lot of bright, really wakes your palate up.
Yeah,
for sure. Bright acidity, zesty acidity, parable seafood, nice aperitif wine. Kick off some herbs with it. But 5 months in stainless steel, so no glue in this wine, no mallows, just nice clean fruit.
Yeah.
Just bright, summer glass kind of wine.
It is. It's one of those that you would love to drink slightly chilled on a 90-degree day outside. Yeah. So if you're hanging out there on the back porch and you're looking towards the mountains, then you'll be able to drink this wine. In the summertime, really great.
Yeah, and on your way out as you were driving in today, this block of Petit Manseng, there's only about 2 acres of it, and it's planted just across from our owner's vineyard blocks that get planted. And so playground, this grape thrives in this environment with bigger soils and showing a lot of promise here.
Yeah, and the soil types, as they change, so do the grapes that you have planted there.
They do, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because different grapes thrive in different types of soil. So, and of course, we talked about yesterday. We talked about the map. Every vineyard has a map, and it tells them what works where, and what's planted where any given year.
Right.
The map outlines the entire.
It's true, yeah, and so a couple things about that. And I think there's a lot of story of intentionality here at Crimson Lane with the way this place is developed from the very inception of the purchasing of this property. But having great consultants on hand to understand the topography, the soil types, the soil depth of the property, where things should be planted. And a really cool tool that we have now on our website is you can go to the vineyard section on it, and you can look at a map, like you mentioned, of the entire property, and you can check out the different blocks,
where they are,
what varieties are planted, not only what varieties, but what clones are planted, what rootstocks they're planted on.
Right.
And so there's a lot of cool peek out information.
Yeah. So someday maybe they'll offer a free wine tasting if you can name all the vines on the
clones,
way.
you can name it all. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of acres here. How much do you have under vine?
So under vine is only about 23.6.
That's still a good amount of acres.
Yes, and that'll increase a little bit over the next couple of years, but it's like I mentioned, very intentional. We don't want to scale up too much. We want to keep it to a certain boutique quality focused level, and so we're taking a lot of time, a lot of care. And the original vines, and you can probably peek out that window and see it just above the tasting room.
Oh yeah.
That initial planting back in 2016 is that higher power vineyard behind us, which is what you see up the hill there. The subsequent plantings that are down the hill as you're driving on the property were planted various stages throughout the next few years. But the largest and most of our production comes still from the original planting.
Really?
Yeah.
2016. Okay, we're coming 8 years. So they're still maturing.
A lot. Yep.
Yeah. So they get to the point. Grapes get to the point where you might be able to harvest enough to get good wine in years 3, 4, and 5, depending on weather and all circumstances.
Right.
But as you go on to years 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you get a decade beyond, then you start to get this different level of maturity of grapes.
Sure.
And the wines produce a very exciting, bouquet when you bring it into the bottle, which is pretty. It's a science and it's an art and
Science and art together. Yeah.
it's pretty cool. And we've had those discussions because it's just crazy. Now, did you say his name was Dominic?
Yeah. So
Okay.
a little
Is
back.
he a tinkerer?
Yeah, he is. He's a attention to detail, and he is that amalgam of artist and scientist. I know him and I would describe him that way. A lot of attention to detail, a lot of specificity in every phase of winemaking and vineyard management. I tell people all the time, what's in your glass is a result of 1,000 different decisions, and 1,000 different factors that are both in and out of your control in the production. But Dominic's a fantastic winemaker. He had a career in IT, but he's been making wine his whole life. He's a South Jersey Italian, and so grew up making wine as a kid. Yep. And,
did he work for any of the wineries in Jersey?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
His first sort of foray professionally into winery was he apprenticed with Jim Law over at Linden Vineyards.
Really?
Just 2 miles from there.
Yeah. Those guys, they have some good ones too.
Yeah, and Jim is sort of the godfather, patriarch of, I think of it as quality Virginia.
Well, they're 5 generations, I think, right?
I don't know. He to my knowledge, purchased that land back in the 70s. And kind of,
maybe not. Maybe it's another vineyard.
But his intuition and feeling about what you needed to be able to achieve quality wine in Virginia, chasing hillside viticulture, those high elevation, steep slopes, rocky soil, all the land that nobody else wants to farm, right? It's very difficult to farm.
It's hard to.
And finding ways to mitigate, the pressures and challenges that Virginia throws at winemaker, because there are many.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of precipitation during the growing season. There's the potential for frost in the spring. A variety of other factors.
Yeah, in the spring, that's like killer. Especially when you see them budding out that word, you're like,
yeah, that's not good.
You're like almost crying at that point.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, we're gonna have a frost But there are workarounds. Still. But Dominic's the tinkerer. I have yet to meet or know Adeline that they're not a tinkerer, and that's the artist in them.
Right, and you almost have to, because we're focused here on vintage-based winemaking. So because the year-to-year variation in Virginia, you get these big ups and downs.
Right.
And I'm sure you know this. You have to be almost a tinkerer. You have to be willing to understand exactly what the vineyard, exactly what the climate, exactly what nature's giving you every year, and do your best with it. So your level of ripeness and your everything year to year is pretty widely varied.
Yeah, and even when nature does its thing and you get a great yield, then you have to continue to tinker while you're processing it and when you're finishing it. And you've got to have somebody on board that has a very olfactory sense. They can smell a wine and go, wait, I need to adjust it in this manner. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm just familiar enough to know the buzzwords and that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is that is something and you have to do that regularly. Like you're not gonna, especially during the season, if you will, you could be checking in on a daily basis just to make sure because you want it to go exactly right.
Sure, and they're never easy decisions. I mean, even mid-season when you're looking at your yield, what's on the vine, you're saying, can this vine ripen all of this fruit? Do I need to drop fruit early, to promote ripening to the other investors? And make those hard decisions where you're looking at quality and quantity decisions all the time.
Because that lowers your yield, but it raises your quality, and you're like, okay, when do I make the decision, and when do I make that decision?
Right.
So that's a really tough call. I wouldn't want to be able to do that. So.
But I think Dominic, he's really smart. He's a great winemaker, very talented, and he's obviously been here since 2016, since the first planting. And the first production year, kind of what we're talking about is that vintage difference and making those tough decisions. 2018 was a notoriously difficult year in Virginia.
Yes.
Rainfall.
It was
all growing season. That was our first vintage year. And they made about 30 couple cases of a red blend called Prelude, 30 couple cases of a Chardonnay. And the Prelude was named this sort of promise of things to come because in spite of all the rainfall, a hard year, they were still able to phenolically ripen red fruit, Merlot, Cab Franc on the site. So in the site selection, I always kind of go back to that. Is a huge part of the sort of this place, and finding a place where, like I said earlier, you can exist in Virginia and exist in the midst of all these things that nature throws at you with precipitation and the frost and the bugs and et cetera, and humidity, and still excel and still ripen fruit and make a world-class wine, and that's really what it is. So we planted it, like I said, in 16. They bought the property a few years before that, 2014, only after they were sure that this property could provide and sort of promise what they were looking for, right?
Wow, so they actually analyzed it, researched it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love the fact that of the intentionality that you mentioned earlier. It was purposed in all aspects.
Sure.
And when you can do that, when you can select the right property, and you're looking around, I'm sure this wasn't the only property that they looked at any time.
No, so the owner here, Tom Harrity, he is a very successful businessman from DC, really passion for wine, and passion for what we're doing here at Crimson Lane. So his vision, his wife's Deanna, their shared vision, and then Dominic is her brother. So this is family team of three.
Cool. Yeah.
And so intentionality with, like I said earlier, consultants and understanding, take the time to find the right place to do this project. So they looked for a number of years actually before they settled on this property. And we're here in Linden, Virginia. When I mentioned how close Linden Vineyards is, we are in Linden proper, and just off 66, about an hour from DC, and it's about
really close over there.
Yeah, it's about a 200-acre piece of land total. And before they purchased, they were doing a lot of soil testing. They had a soil scientist, Bo Beasley, here who's doing dig pits, looking at the layers, how deep, how well drained, etc. They had Lucy Morton, who's a really well-regarded viticulturalist. She's done consulting all over the world, and she's, like I said, very well respected here in Virginia. topsoil and subsoil of the rock there, so that lines up.
How far down?
I don't know how far down.
I bet
Pretty darn
I
far.
bet you it's 15 feet or more.
Yeah.
Because vines tend to seep.
Yes,
they
they do.
just go.
Especially when you're planting a low vigor site like this, and those vines have to go find what they need. You're not
Right.
providing it, so you're keeping them in that balance, that fine balance of survivability and vigor, kind of balancing those two things. So yeah, this upper vineyard higher power, I mean, it's all greenstone, which is ancient lava flow,
Wow.
bedrock, very little topsoil, very thin subsoil, and very high, so it's topping up almost at 1,500 feet. And if you were to go back there and look straight up, it's a very steep site. So
Yes.
the range that
Yes.
the site provides is incredible.
Yeah, there's no holding the water there.
No,
It's
no.
running
And
off.
not just water, but also the frost. We talked earlier about cold air.
Yeah.
That
At the top.
frost is heavier air,
Mhm.
so we're above the frost line, but we don't really struggle with the frost issues that tend to plague Virginia vineyards.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't like rise up on occasion, but
No, they've had a
maybe
few.
it's down at the bottom.
So freezes have affected us in the past, but that's unavoidable because really all the air is below freezing, right? But the frost potential that does create relative elevation. So there's a high vineyard there. There's a couple of blocks down the hill, and then if you look out behind us here, we've got this beautiful little valley. It's called the Manassas Gap,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah.
River 66 runs now. It's
Yeah.
an ancient riverbed, so very quick transitions in elevation, which really help us with that cold air
That's
across
cool.
here.
Yeah, that's a relief, to be honest with you, because dealing with frost on
Mhm.
green vineyard is
Yep.
not a good thing.
And the other thing that this valley provides too is a lot of air movement. So when you're dealing with frost, but you're also dealing with humidity in the summer.
Right.
You're waking up, it's morning, you have overnight dew, overnight rainfall, your vines are wet. In a lot of places they're going to stay wet till mid-afternoon potentially. But here at this site we have a lot of air movement of all southern facing slopes. So the vines are drying off very quickly in the morning. So our spray program and mildew pressure in the vineyard,
Yeah.
powdery down, all that stuff is kept to a minimum.
Yeah, I was going to say mildew would be very minimal, unless it just kept raining.
Right.
Then it never goes.
Which can happen in Virginia, unfortunately.
So
We're pretty set to-
let's continue this conversation, but get our second
Yes.
sample, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush your.
Not at all. So,
All right.
I'm gonna sneak around the microphone here. I don't want to bump it. Let's go with the other white glass here.
Oh, the other one. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah, so we're
Oh,
gonna
it's a
say
7 on one.
white wines with 3 whites and reds.
Gotcha. All right, jump that one. Jump the protocol.
All right. So
Ooh.
next wine of the tasting is our 2022 Sauvignon Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
And this Sauvignon Blanc here is the vineyard that I was just talking about, the higher power vineyard. If you look up and to the right side out there, it's nice elevation site. Sauvignon Blanc here, vintage after vintage is very popular in the wines. It's very solid for us. Stainless steel aging, 5 months. Even more, McDonald's looking more, I think, old world in style.
Right, it is
softer.
The Pacific, yeah, definitely.
Really integrated acidity, and for me, this wine is all about aromatics. You got beautiful aromatics, a bright tropical fruit, just bright fruit, some citrus as well, and that aromatic complexity is beautiful. It just carries through the flavor and the finish of this wine.
Oh, the finish is amazing.
Yep.
Sauvignon Blanc, you can get different finishes on the Sauvignon Blanc, but this one just kind of draws out a while, and it feels good, and has that, and it goes into your nostrils as well.
Yeah, and that's something I look forward to playing. This is thank you. Aromatics, flavor, and finish all line up.
Yeah,
It's
for
telling
sure.
certain stories, so it's
Yeah.
nice when you have this nice through line.
It's very consistent.
Right.
Yeah, so the minute it comes into your mouth, it just works its way through the process, and you're just like, yeah, I like this.
I think something I really appreciate about the wines here is their versatility, and especially with food and food pairings. I think a lot of the wines that I think Dominic is, you grew up with, he's referencing in his wine, at least love of wine and winemaking, are old world wines. They're not big fruit bomb wines. They're not massive alcohol level. They're restrained. They've got beautiful acidity, it's well integrated really across the board, even our reds, and they really are open, open books as far as pairing them.
Right. Right. And people look at it, okay, so, what's the alcohol content? The alcohol content is it's kind of like a side product of wine itself, right? So, you're going for this wine, it's gonna have alcohol, but, the level doesn't really matter in the sense of, okay, you don't want it to be 18%, but on the other hand, you're looking at it and going, okay, so this one's a little bit, like, you could have a red wine with a 12.5% alcohol level, but it's a phenomenal red wine. And so you don't have, the great part is that you don't have to worry about that. Like, people are drinking the wine for the wine.
Sure. And it's figuring out too, I think, a lot of folks aren't terribly familiar with Virginia wine. If you look,
Right.
if you zoom out into the U.S. or the world or whatever, and so, us in Virginia figuring out where we are in that sort of spectrum. If you look at the old world, you see typically lower alcohol wines, a little bit fresher acidity, again, more food pairing kind of. And then you look at California, then you're at least, in the last few decades, you're going to see big, bold, with a lot of alcohol, not really worried as much about the food, or they're just big wines. They can ripen.
Well, huge sometimes.
Yeah, and so we're finding like a middle ground. I think Virginia can do that, and again, we're looking at ranges and other stuff too.
But that's the whole scenario. You're looking at it and going, okay, so what do we want to be?
Right.
Virginia.
Right.
The region of Virginia, what do we want to be? So you're matching all the things that actually grow in the region, but you're also looking at, okay, where's our market? And how do we want to make that happen? And I love the fact that when you say, again, we're going back to the intentionality, all these things were researched, and Crimson Lane said, what mark do we want to leave? We have all this foundational base. What mark do we want to leave? And what role do we want to play in the region? And I think to actually plan that out is like, it's like a crazy strategy. And you will see that. I mean, normally you see, I like them to have a vineyard, and then, these slopes are hilly.
Right. Or maybe you inherited some land and you're saying, I should try to plant grapes here, right? And that's the story a lot of places, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I think the history of Virginia viticulture, it's really rocky. I mean, if you go back a couple hundred years, people have been trying to plant grapes here for a long time with mixed results. I'll positive spin.
Mostly not.
Yeah, mostly not good results.
But they took time to figure that out.
It did, and in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, people like I mentioned earlier, Jim Law and others, figuring out what you have to do. Site selection I think is huge. Finding the right region, and I think I'm very personally optimistic about this region where it's a living area here.
Yes.
We're surrounded by some really great folks. You talked to Theo, I think, yesterday, right?
2 days.
2 days ago. Capstan next door. RDB is about 20 minutes that way. Just that way, not a you. And then across, you got Lane Vineyards, a few others that are
Fox
doing
Meadow.
a good job. Yep, Fox Meadows, a new vineyard back there called Silver Dog. They're not online.
They're not open yet.
But they're growing over there, some Italian varieties.
I think winter we're talking about.
Okay. And then you can wrap it all the way around to Glen Manor.
Yesterday, that was yesterday, Glen Manor. And they have a different approach, which is cool because, people are like, oh, they're just growing grapes, they're putting them into a bottle and I drink one. Well, there's a lot more to that. We talked about a lot of it already, but there's a lot more to the approach of that too. So, we talked about that they have a vintage approach where they want to make everything vintage, right? You guys are purposed in how you do your wine and how you and all of that gets put together, and that's what makes the individuality of each winery, right? So when you're here and you're drinking wine here, it's going to taste different because it has a different approach.
Sure.
It's all good,
Sure.
but it has a different approach.
Yeah.
And to learn the approach, like what we've talking about here, to learn that approach, to find, because to find the right site, to do the research on the site, to pick the right vines that will grow on this site. All of that is purpose, and that's a different strategy, right?
Exactly.
It's a different strategy than the hit or miss strategy that, that a lot of vineyards honestly do. You know, they go, okay, I'm going to try out
Right.
this, you know, and see if it works. You know, I've heard that so-and-so made it work out with theirs, and they don't have all of that foundational base that you guys have.
And I would say, with that said, every vineyard that's ever been planted is experimental in some degree.
Well, of course,
You
yeah.
don't know, but then
Yeah.
you're talking about people who, you know, have tried, you know, to plant vines all over the place in Virginia, and that's a, you know, worthy, you know, effort, something to chase. But I think over the past few decades, people have learned a lot.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of trial and
Yes.
error, you know, figuring out, you know, again, back to all the things, foundational, soil type, slope, all that
Right.
good stuff. But you're right. There's something special here in this area. I think in Virginia, you're going to see really beautiful, exceptional quality wine over the next few years onward
Yeah.
from this.
Yeah, I think what happened is it clicked about 20 years ago. It clicked, and people were like, "Wait, if we do this, boom!" And then everybody else, they didn't follow suit per se, but they understood the concept of what needed to be done. You know, whereas 100 years before that, it was flat out trial and error. I'm going to bring in some Pinot Noir grapes, or I'm going to bring in, you know, Albarino grapes, or I'm going to bring in these grapes, and you're just literally not grapes for fine.
Sure.
But you're literally, it's trial and error, and you know,
And
you
the
can throw a
unfortunate-
season and your entire field of whatever is
Yeah.
dead because it was the wrong weather for that
Right.
particular
And the
vine.
unfortunate thing about the grape growing industry is that, you know, your lead time, you know,
Mm.
you've got years and years before you learn it,
Right.
and really, and so you're right, it takes a lot of time to figure it out.
And I think that's why, you know, the yield doesn't really get strong until the fourth or fifth year, because it does take you that many seasons to get this specific location figured out. But what I love about what you guys did is that you did all that foundational work ahead of time, so it enabled you to cut away some of the work. You know, you already had a good understanding of what was probably going to happen when you planted this vine.
Right, I think that's, and
Right.
I can't, I mean, I wasn't here until last year, but, you know, Tom, and the lead team here, I think having that level of intention coming into it,
Right.
Dominic coming from, of course, you know, friends with Jim, but then he was also a winemaker at Bella Plain and Ingleside
Ah,
in
okay.
Virginia. So
Yes,
he was
yes.
in Ingleside, and coming in with a lot of work with vines in various regions in Virginia,
Mhm.
but also various ages. He works with very old vines, some of the oldest vines in Virginia at Ingleside, understanding, you know, what we hope will become Virginia terroir, and you know what can do well here, bringing that knowledge to it. I
Right.
think was a huge,
Yeah.
you know, asset. So combination of factors, but knowing we needed to understand things on a very deep level before putting a vine in the
Right.
ground.
It eliminates numerous factors in the trial and error scenario. It's still trial and error only because you can't control the weather,
Right.
and you don't know how everything is going to really react to the soil. You're pretty sure, but you're not 100% positive.
Sure.
Right? And then you're only taking spot locations for soil, so and that soil profile can change soil underneath.
Yeah.
So you don't know. You take a couple of good spots, and everything in between might be different altogether.
And it's pretty exceptional. If you walk, you know, that vineyard I was talking about earlier, the higher power vineyard above us, if you walk across row to row, you'll be in, what's the example, like the Chardonnay block up top in the middle. You're walking across it, you've got your many rows of Chardonnay. It looks like the same soil if you look down at the ground, obviously, but then underneath, of course, it's changing as far as soil depth, et cetera. So you're walking across the block row to row, you're looking at the tagline of the row, and you'll see rootstock variation because they've mapped the entirety of the vineyard, and they know where the soil's a little deeper.
Right.
We're going to plant a rootstock that's going to go a little shallower, so as to not pull
Yes.
some water into the vine, et cetera. And then,
Yeah.
you know, the other side of that is true as well, where you have you know, thinner soil that's going to get the stock going to dig deeper. So basically, every vine planted to the soil that's
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
which is pretty exceptional. I think the level of detail on that.
That's but if you're not doing that homework, if you will, up front, you know, if you can sense it, you have a feeling that it's going to go well here, but you have to check it out. It has to, and it takes 3 or 4 years to find it out. So you want to eliminate that excited.
Does something have long streak in the wall?
Mm-hmm.
Good, good. This is a great porch, porch sipper, pairable with a number of foods, chicken, fish, etc. But I love this one, just on its own. I think it came back the aromatics, the way
Yeah.
the texture is beautiful.
I think you could pull that off with Thanksgiving.
You could? Yeah, and speaking of that, we're going to jump to the barrel aged Chardonnay.
Nice, okay,
Speak
yeah.
around the microphone here.
Yeah,
real
you want
quick.
me to do this?
If it works.
Try it in one place. I once poured for somebody, and most people, when you pour a glass of wine for them, they raise the glass, right?
Yeah.
This particular person, like, pushed the glass forward, so I got red wine on my wrist.
Okay.
That was a little bit tricky to get out of, but fortunately I survived it.
Spilled a lot of wine on it.
Yeah.
So it's
But I was like,
part of the course.
you know, just,
Yeah.
all right, so this is the
Yeah.
barrel aged
Barrel aged Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got a deeper color.
It does. Yeah.
So-
Yeah. So a couple of things I would say about this wine and about Chardonnay in general here at Crimson Lane. So we get a lot of guests coming in who have a variety of opinions about Chardonnay in the market today.
No.
There's always people who are like, I don't do Chardonnay. I'm like, please don't pour it. They'll look at our tasting and they'll say, let's skip the Chardonnay.
Yeah.
So I like to say that we specialize in converting folks back to Chardonnay.
Right.
I think that the perspective of the wine growing and the wine making here at Crimson is really to present a balanced Chardonnay.
Yeah.
That isn't a story of extremes like we find in the market. So we produce two different Chardonnays. We produce a stainless steel Chardonnay, most vintages,
Okay.
and a barrel aged Chardonnay.
So you do one of each?
Typically.
Okay.
Yeah. Now perhaps we have an exceptional vintage and Dominic decides to put the entire yield into barrel, and that happens sometimes, but generally there's some sort of ratio, some stainless and some barrel. But I will say in the vineyard, back to the sort of where the fruit's coming from, there's 5 different clones of Chardonnay planted.
Okay.
So Dominic and Tom were very intentional about selecting clones that offer different characteristics of acidity, cluster size, fruit, yield, etc. And blending those together basically in the vineyard. So currently every one of those clones is harvested all together. So we're getting a unique kind of, there's some Italian origin clones, French and California, so they're kind of different perspective. They're just fruit
Pseudo blend, if you will.
Yeah, almost like a field blend of different Chardonnays.
That's pretty cool. That's okay. That's a different approach on it as well.
Mhm.
So that's what this is it's a blend of the different
Clones.
clones
from
the different
Exactly.
areas.
Exactly. And they're all Chardonnay. We talk about clones here a good bit. They're all Chardonnay, of course, but then sub-varieties. You had some Chardonnay that was planted in Italy for 100, 200 years, and it sort of developed its own characteristics.
Yes.
And that could have been,
Yes.
there's a whole bunch of characteristics that could have developed, and it's going to have maybe some spice in the aroma, maybe some different acidity, like I said, maybe sugars rise a little quicker, clusters are a little smaller, maybe a little larger, etc. And so finding a unique way to present Chardonnay from this property is to plant a few different clones, and then have the capacity to harvest them separately, but right now they're all together.
Mm-hmm.
And then for this wine specifically, the barrel aged Chardonnay, it is of course barrel aged in mostly French oak, a tiny bit of Hungarian oak in the program.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay.
But Dominic is a barrel, attention to detail guy. So he's got different clones in the winery, different varieties and various barrels from specific coopers. So he's got specific French oak, coopers that Cabernet Franc clone 4 is going to go in. And he's, it's like I mentioned.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
And so when he's looking at it, he's like, okay, this is what I'm going to end up with. So I'll do this barrel.
Right.
So
He's learning. I mean, it is still young, like you said earlier, but he's learning and honing that in vintage after vintage for works here at Crimson Lane. But this wine, like I mentioned at first earlier, but before it goes into barrel, there's some level of malolactic conversion, and that's only about 20 to 30% on this wine. So what I mean to say there is that he's intentionally leaving some of that beautiful fruit and acidity in the wine.
Right.
He's not turning it into a butter bomb, happens.
It's significantly set apart from a typically barrel aged Chardonnay.
Right.
I mean, it really is. And you can, and one of the first things you taste is just a slight hint of fruit when you taste it. But it finishes really well as well.
It does.
And so you're looking at it going, okay, this is really different, right? Like you said, the butterball. I mean, you know, if you like the butterball, that's awesome. But if you don't, then this is a definite great alternative because it's not as, it's not going to hit you hard,
Right.
but you can still taste the influence of it.
Right. And even when you put your nose in the glass, you're getting that spice from the
Oh,
oak. But you're getting
yeah.
lots of fruit too. So they're really complementing each other and chasing a sense of balance. And aromatically, flavor-wise, there is that creaminess,
Yeah.
but it's not overdone.
Yeah, I love the specificity of that. It's, you know, to do, again, intentionally, like you said. That's the word for it.
I think the style, exactly. And the style of what I see coming from Crimson is really fruitful. It's always highlighting the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not highlighting those secondary characteristics from the barrel. And they're there to support the fruit. And what the,
Right.
the vineyard and the wine you can really highlight in terms of fruit off the property.
Without the sugar. Fruit without the sugar.
Yeah.
The sweet taste. It's a good dry wine, but it's not overpowering with the fruit is giving you the sweetness, not the sugar.
And then the barrel program, after now, of course, you're going to barrel only 30% new oak.
Okay.
So of every 10 barrels, 3 of them are brand new. The other 7 are going to be in various stages of you know, having been used.
Okay.
And they're not going to impart so much oak into the wine.
Exactly.
So keeping that measure, keeping that nuance, not overplaying the oak, not overplaying the narrow, and letting again the fruit speak. So the acidity of this wine, the freshness of it, balance with the oak is really lovely, and makes it. You talked about Thanksgiving earlier. This is your, this is your Thanksgiving stuffing. You can go with start with that one, go with this, but you can you need more than one bottle anyway, right?
Drink the you know, the second one. That was the 701. Yeah. I had to make sure I had it right. Drink the 701 before dinner and drink the Chardonnay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So because this has definitely, this will really go well with turkey and stuff.
It would.
Cranberry and all that.
Yeah. So there's another one on this. We've got, you know, currently what we're offering in the tasting room here at Crimson is, you know, a couple different vintages. The first one we tasted was 2023. That Statement Sing's a very fresh style wine, so
Yeah.
you know we're presenting it just a few months, really, well, basically a year after it was harvested. These others, you know, that barrel of Chardonnay we just tasted 18 months in the barrel, so it's that's more lead time. So it's a 2021 vintage, and then we'll move on to the reds next.
So yeah, and I think sometimes maybe I'm wrong. Forgive, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but making a 100% Mencin, petite Mencin, is just something that's come out in the last few years, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think there have been some folks who
It's
have
okay.
blended it before. I'm actually not aware of much blending going on. I think that the grape itself has come into more of a public knowledge in the last few years.
Okay.
You didn't see it planted a lot
No.
maybe 15, 20 years ago. But I think, again, back to, you know, Virginia climate, what grapes work well, you know, high quality yet resilient grapes. So thicker skin, looser cluster. And thicker skin, obviously, if you're getting that moisture pressure on the grows, they're not as susceptible to disease. Looser cluster, you can get airflow through. So that's why you don't see a lot of maybe Zinfandel or Pinot Noir planted in Virginia.
Right.
That's not going to happen, right? That's not going to So
That's
shout
why
out to Ankita Ridge for growing Pinot in Virginia. They're very high elevation and have a really special site, but largely.
Well, there it is. It's the site.
Exactly.
And nobody else has one. Kind of
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Yeah.
Because the Pinot in this area it's just so brutal.
It's too thin, very thin skin,
Yeah.
very tight. So
Yeah.
you're asking for
Too much.
You know, that.
It's too much.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah, so I mean that's, you know, let's leave the Pinot to Willamette Valley, you know, because they just do that all day long.
Sure.
Once went to a wine tasting with 5 different Pinot Noirs in the tasting. And
It's probably, were they different producers? Or?
No,
Okay.
they were all the same producer, and my first thought was, this is not going to go well. But I was pleasantly surprised. You know, and I can kind of keep it in mind, right? So, you know, I've tasted wines from a lot of different places. And so I've learned that you can't judge it just because it says, well, something. You can't judge it that way. Like, if you judge this Chardonnay based on a barrel of Chardonnay, you'd be wrong. Because it's different, and it's different for a reason, and it tastes,
Sure.
you know, and depending on what you like in wine, it's better than a butter bomb, and it offers that different flavor that you don't get in a
Right. Yeah.
so you can't, and that's why, you know, when people come in and say, you know, I don't like Sauvignon Blanc.
Right.
Well,
What's their reference wine?
yeah, let me challenge you on that, right? You know, especially if it's barrel aged.
Exactly.
You know, and so, you know, and what they're saying is that they don't like a heavy influence of the barrel on that grape.
For sure.
And when you introduce them to something like this, the influence is there, but it's not heavy.
Yeah, it's all about extremes.
So
And I think when you're trying to create a product, it's easy to get into extremes. But when you're trying to create something that's an expression or art, for lack of a better word, of a place and a time, that's going to be a different thing than trying to create a product.
Absolutely.
And product just asks for extremes because it's following trends and all that stuff. And what we're trying to do is present a sort of a snapshot in each bottle of this property within a given vintage, and what can we do with that fruit that's going to express it the best. And that's I think if I could personally summarize the methodology behind the wine making and production here, it's that.
Yeah. And with that, I'm a real fan of distorted perception.
There you go.
I don't like Chardonnay.
Right.
Why don't you know?
Why not?
Why not? You know, and then you pull something out that whoa. Well, you know, it's distorted perception. That's their perception. I'm not gonna like this. Don't like this.
Sure. And some of the great wines in the world are Chardonnays. If you say, do you like champagne? You're like, I love champagne. You don't like Chardonnay? It's like, well, yeah, most champagne is Chardonnay, right?
That's an excellent point, by the way.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, so it's great to do that, and so, you know, that's what a lot of these ones are already doing, is they're destroying this perception based on how, you know, how you
yeah, and that's
create, how
important.
you tinker, how you manage it.
Yeah, and that's important for us as Virginia to be destroying perception, you know, day after day, because Virginia has sort of a mixed track record as far as wine. If you say to someone, you go to some, you know, a large city in the world, you go to some great restaurant or wine list, do you see Virginia on there? Well, not yet. Some of them you do.
Yeah.
And you ask the somm, you ask the winemaker somewhere else,
Yeah.
what do you think of Virginia wine?
Yeah, is that a thing?
Yeah. So we're I think very rapidly increasing in quality. We're starting to see world-class wines really coming from Virginia. And so destroying perception of like, oh, you guys just make fruit wines, you make this only DNA, you know, whatever.
Right,
So there's
yeah.
a lot of perceptions will come. If they know anything about it, they're bringing a lot of preconceptions.
Right, and that's why we like to have this podcast, because, you know, people do have preconceived understanding of what wine is and what wine should be. And as a result of that, they may not like wine at all. Where, you know, I maintain the reference that there is a wine out there for everyone.
Sure.
You know, it's just a question of finding your wine. Because you have to try it. You have to go in and do a tasting like this. Oh, you know, speaking of which, we should move on to the next one. But
And your palate will evolve too. So the wine you didn't
Really
drink 10 years
does.
ago,
Yeah.
you might like today.
And a lot of people begin with sweet wines because they're easier to deal with. You know,
Sure.
independent.
Alright, so we're moving to the red.
Okay, let's not forget to put
Red.
these on the
The
table.
red realm. Yeah, exactly. Let me adjust those. There we go. I'm gonna hand you the barrel. Here we go. So, not to change the subject, but as we move into the red wines, got 3 reds here. The first that we're gonna taste is called Collina. That's Collina. The name Collina comes from the Italian word for hill.
Ah,
So I mentioned Jersey,
Mhm.
Italian,
Mhm.
and it's also a nod to the hillside viticulture here. So we talked earlier about why that's so important in Virginia, you know, elevation, slope, etc. So this wine, I actually really love this one. It's my current favorite on the list right now. It's our red blend that's driven by Merlot.
Mhm.
It's technically our second blend. So what happens is every year when we go and blend our reds, we go and
Right.
blend in the Proudly Winery. We take a whole day. You're going to taste every barrel of every one of the red varietals that are in the winery. So
Okay.
Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot. We're going to taste each and every barrel. We're going to grade every barrel, A plus, A minus, etc. And then from the top, cream of the crop is going to go into our flagship blend called Proval.
Right.
And then we're going to tend to blend everything else into Colina, which we're tasting right now. It doesn't mean it's a lesser than wine. It just means that it's tending to be a little different in terms of the way it presents than what we're looking for in an age-worthy, big, bold flagship wine. Does
All
that
right.
make sense?
Yeah, I'm going to throw something out here
Go for it.
for the listeners and
Yeah.
the viewers. So, you know, when you look at wines, you're thinking, oh, it has to be able to stand alone as a grape. But if you think about the reality of things, you know, there are some wines out there that, when blended, they have a better and more unique flavor than independent. And why? So why would you torture the grape itself by making it standalone
Sure.
when it has a much better flavor, much better profile, doing that blend? And I feel like, you know, I wanted to mention, blends have gotten a lot more mature in the last 10 to 20 years. You know, a red blend used to be all the grapes that nobody wanted, and you threw it into a fat, you know, bottle of wine out of it. But now, again, we're going to go back to the intentional. Now, blends are intentional. And so you're looking at that and thinking, okay, so and that's one of those things you have to leave it up to the artist. You know, would you tell Van Gogh how to paint a painting? Would you tell, Picasso how to paint a painting? No, you're not going to tell them anything. You're going to buy that painting and you're going to be just thrilled because you have one.
Sure.
And, when you look at this kind of scenario, Dominic's going to put this together. Dominic knows his palate. He's going to taste like this. And he's going to go, okay, this is what's going to make this year's wine like rock the shelves.
Yeah, I think what we're looking for is to look back to traditional Bordeaux blending. So if you look at the great wines of the world, the great Bordeaux's, and they're comprised of a few different varietal wines put together, and each of those wines serves a purpose in the blend. So,
Yes.
I think our site, and then also looking back in history and looking at what each of those varietals brings, it's important to bring to it with that knowledge. So Cabernet Sauvignon is your bold, tannic, rich, structured wine. It's the backbone of what you probably want to present, right? And then Merlot is going to bring a lot of the fruit, a lot of the freshness, a lot of the mid-palate sort of texture, fruit, red fruit in the middle. And then Cabernet Franc is going to bring your spice. And Petit Verdot may bring a lot of the earthiness, the intensity, dark fruit. And so those four grapes combined, and there's a reason that for hundreds, at least, years in Bordeaux, they've been blending those particular grapes together.
Exactly.
And they don't even tell you if you go buy some of those expensive wines in the world, they don't tell you what the blend is. It's just, this is the place, this is the winery, this is the vineyard, and then, it's comprised of these grapes that we're blending. Right? So we kind of found what each one's role is. And I think it's what we're chasing in the blend. When we do the barrel tasting, or the blending process, the Proval, and we'll talk about that wine when we do it next, gets blended first, and we go to Colina. It tends to be Merlot driven. It's also been Cabernet Franc driven. But I think this wine, I think of as a wine to enjoy now. I love a Merlot driven blend, so it's a big one. And it's wine. It's super pairable with, really a lot of things. But of course, I think the Proval steak, but this is more like the burger one. You know what I mean? Just kind of goes with a
for sure.
Yeah. Some grilled red meat is beautiful.
Smooth, flavorful.
It is. And all these reds we're going to talk about today are 24 month and 60% new oak. So there's a great barrel program down there, as we talked about with Chardonnay. This is Colina, 2021.
So, do you hit up the medium toasting kind of scenario? Or?
There's a variety down in the winery, both the cooperages and at toasting level. I think would say medium would be your average,
Yeah.
and there are some variation there.
It's hard to do a head and taste.
Yeah, there's not a lot. I think, and
It really is.
yeah, I'm gonna defer that question. I don't know exactly which of our varieties would be, or varietals would have been any heavy toast. Petit Verdot would be the only one that would come to mind.
Yeah, it's going to be
yeah.
it's going to be a stronger breed.
Yeah, and again, back to what we were talking about earlier, I don't think the oak program is not designed to throw a ton of oak at the wine. It's designed to complement the fruit. And I find that, especially in these 2021 reds, we just released these 2021 reds just a few weeks ago, and they're very well received. Again, back to what I mentioned earlier about the style of wine, they have a freshness to them. They're a little brighter, they pair super well with food.
Yeah.
And I just think they express really the best of the site. I'm really loving it, especially with Luna. How's that taste with you?
I want a good burger.
There you go.
No, when you said burger, I was like, yeah. So I love that. Of course, it has to be a good burger. Okay, I'm picky about my burgers, so but if it is a good burger, this would go really, really well.
Great.
And along that line, there's a team shout out to the two fat guys from Butchers in Front Royal. They have some classy meats. I mean, they have some great meat. So every time we get in town, we head there so that we can do a barbecue on, with filet mignon or whatever we
There you go.
buy that day. But yeah. So
on Saturdays they have they're smoking the barbecue.
No.
Up front. Yeah. So I drive right through this cloud of smoke as I'm coming to work here. It fills my vehicle.
I mean, yeah, you want to stop at that point because if you're driving through the smoke, you're going to smell the delicious meat that's being barbecued.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can definitely see that. This is definitely a really nice wine. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's no longer throwing it together. It's doing a very specific blend and understanding what's going to make this year's yield be. And this, you said you just bottled this a little bit ago?
This is 2021. So this was bottled a couple of years ago.
Okay. Sorry.
No. But a really lovely sort of right bank style Merlot-driven blend. I love the fruit in this wine. It's just so accessible, so fun, so fresh.
With the amount of Merlot in here, you never actually guess that much is it. Because you think Merlot is going to be a lighter taste. But this has a very good, it's a lot of flavor.
That's
a lot of flavor.
The ripeness potential, especially of red wines at Crimson Lane. Because like I mentioned earlier, not to always go back to the site and the vineyard and all that, but that's really a lot of what winemaking is, right?
Please do.
So I think the ability of this site to keep the vine in balance through the growing season, and what that translates to is, Virginia has often been plagued by red wines that are underripe. So you get these green compounds, you get this sort of like peppery, spinachy, stewed sort of green thing going on aromatically and flavorizing the wines. Methoxypyrazine is the chemical that needs to ripen out that sometimes can't. So what you're looking for in the site is a place where the vegetative aspect of the vine doesn't get out of control. That starts the season, the vine's working to create its vegetative structure, and then mid-season, you're keeping the vine in this sort of questionable survival state. It says, I don't have quite everything I need. I'm not fat and happy. I need to be worried a little bit about my survival. So what I'm going to do is really focus on making some babies.
Yeah.
And what that translates to for a vine is ripening fruit.
Yeah. Sustainability.
That's the way it passes on genetics, right?
Right.
And so with a site like this, what we're able to do in midsummer is you see the vibration happening, the color of the fruit's changing. During that time, the vine really starts to redirect its carbohydrates to ripening fruit. It's not making the leaves, the stems, etc. anymore. It's really worried about ripening fruit, and then that way we get a fully ripe late summer into fall, and our vines are producing fruit that is losing that green aromatic flavor. You're getting, like you said, a fuller body wine. Like you mentioned, the Merlot's a little richer, and that's absolutely true. Both phenolically, which is your seeds and your skins of the grape, that phenolic ripeness is giving you 24 months.
Okay, 24,
60%
60% new oak,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we started starting with 30,
That's a
jumped
lot.
to 60.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is, but I think coupled with new oak is the type of oak you're using,
Mm-hmm.
and we're a largely French oak house.
Yeah.
So essentially, French oak, your finest oak, but it's very tight grained, which means that it's not throwing, so much of its energy at the wine so quickly, right? And you
Yes.
get into Hungarian oak, it's a little wider, and then American oak would be the widest grain. So you're going to get more
Yes.
aromatic and oak intensity, aromatic and flavor intensity from the oak very quickly.
Right.
So oak, you get the difference in the grain levels. So the French is a lot more nuanced. So you can really take your time with it. Does that make sense?
Easier to control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A
I
little
find
finer.
that, yeah.
Yep.
American oak, if you like cut it,
Mhm.
I mean, you can smell it like 20 feet back.
Mhm.
But it does have a larger grain.
And it's not that it's bad, it's just
No,
I think it's in the recipe, you're looking at it in different contexts. There's some
It's a
wonderful
different.
wines in the world that use
Yeah.
American oak. Rioja's a great example. Some really phenomenal wines in California use
Yeah.
American oak, but those wines tend to be really hefty. You can really take it, and it's not about the
Yeah,
nuance so
Rioja's
much.
definitely, they've got a lot better. And yeah, so, and it's just literally an ingredient. To use French oak, American oak, and Belgian oak, or whatever other oak you're using, it's the ingredient, right? So it's like salt, pepper, garlic, or
And the structure, and it has to do a lot with the structure of the wine. I think something I've learned from Dominic a lot is the tannins in the wine. You've got different tannins that present. So when people drink a wine and say, "Oh, there's a lot of tannins of that drying quality in your time, etc." So some of that is from your phenolic compounds in the wine. So you've got your seeds, your skins.
Mm-hmm.
The other portion of it is from the oak barrel itself. And it's bringing its
Right.
own tannins.
Right.
When that oak is
Yeah.
charred, is toasted and charred, it's bringing out those tannins. You put the wine in there, those two different tannins are sort of floating around in the barrel.
Right.
And over time, if you age it long enough in the barrel, they come together.
Yeah.
And they make a new chain of tannins. And that
They merge, yeah.
they do, and they make a polymer, they polymerize, and they create something really beautiful, but that takes a lot of time.
That's
It
why
takes a lot of,
it's one important.
yeah, exactly. It takes a lot of selection of barrels. That's not going to be over or underdone. And so that's a really important component, I think.
Yeah. Ooh, can we, and then we'll talk about the size of the barrels. That's good. A nice variety of wines presented today. Kudos to the selection.
Good. So moving forward in the red end of things, so we tasted Colina first, and then we're moving on to our now flagship wine. So this is Parral,
Okay.
P-A-R-R-A-L. Everyone's like, what's Parral? It's a city in Mexico. Everyone's like, why did you name your wine after a city in Mexico? It's actually a nod, it's an homage to our vineyard crew.
Mm.
So our vineyard crew, led by Romualdo Chavez, is just a really fundamental, important part of this place. They're H2A workers from, like I said, Mexico, who've been coming up and working these vines since 2016, actually 2017, I think. And 9 guys who actually live on the property from March to October. They come up, they finish pruning,
Okay.
they work the vines every day.
Because
Their family here.
it's
and-
seasonal.
Yeah.
This is a seasonal.
And then all the way through harvest in October, they're taking their fruit down to the wineries and then it backs out for the winter.
So they're in the field.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a lot of work.
It's a tremendous amount of
It's
work.
a lot of
And I
work.
can tell you, not just the workload, but also the meticulous way that when I drive up during the growing season and looking at the vines, they're just perfect.
They actually, I can't see very much in here, but driving through, I was like, they're really well maintained. And you can see different vineyard, and a good vineyard, has that different level of maintenance, and that not that less maintenance is like terrible, but on the other hand, these are like the vines are crisp. You can tell there's attention.
Yeah, that thousands of decisions we talked about earlier, decisions that go into a glass of wine, a lot of that's in the vineyard, where, even from your pruning, coming in late spring, or late winter, early spring,
Yes, yeah.
the way that you're treating the vines.
It starts so early.
It does, and then you go to the growing season, they're pulling leaves to expose the clusters to sunlight, they're opening up, in terms of airflow, they're tucking all the shoots and the wires, just maintaining it meticulously all the way through, like we talked about green harvesting earlier, like looking at a vine, deciding, how many of these clusters do I keep, where do I drop,
Right.
all the way through harvest.
So they decide that along with Dominic?
Yeah, it's a team effort, I'm sure.
Yeah,
They come
because-
in and say, that's the cool thing about these guys is that they've been working the same vines for years.
They know the
So
vines.
know the site.
Like literally they know the vines.
Exactly.
Which is crazy. So,
Yeah.
when you have that kind of experience level, you want to, for lack of better terminology, exploit that to the maximum. In other words, you want to utilize their expertise to the fullest. And, they have a lot to offer when it comes to that, because if they're the ones that are on those vines, does anybody have a favorite field? And now I have to.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know.
Thinking, I love this one. I love the work this field.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever's like not as steeply sloped is probably.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, and you have some definitely steep slopes.
Yeah, it's for sure.
I was teasing somebody yesterday. So my house, my personal home, is on, and you see, it's 25% grade, which is, and it's rocky, so it's perfect for vines. But I'm not doing it because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I just can't do it. But it's I could have 6 acres of land, so But again, there's so much effort that goes into it.
Yeah, 6 acres would be a full-time job, right?
Right, just for, especially for one person. But, so that's not happening. So there's no competition for me on anything.
I tell you to go for it. I mean, it's.
But these guys here, they're working the vines, and it really is. It's a lot of effort. You almost have, like some of these, you almost have to be part mountain to traverse these, because there's some steep slopes here.
Exactly right.
And that's crazy. So this.
So the wine is again, I say flagship because going back to that blending trial discussion we had earlier, it is the first wine we make. So when we come into the blending trial, we're taking the top, percentage of barrels from each varietal. We're doing blends. We're saying, okay, let's start with Cabernet Sauvignon. Let's build on that. We're playing around with that ratio wise until we get to a point where we're like, okay, this is Perol. Let's do the math. Let's look at what the other remaining wines are in barrel. When we do the second blend, which is Polino.
Okay, that's cool. I like the way that, and this is smoother than the Polino. This is definitely smoother. But I mean, it's not. That's not a bad thing. It just is.
No,
right? And so, what I love about it is that you can both of those have like an incredibly good offering.
And what we're shooting for in the Perol is, the best of the site would be the first thing, and the second thing, an age-worthy wine where we're looking at something that's going to last. It's going to be something you maybe cellar and say, okay, I'm going to save this for my 5th anniversary, 10th, whatever it is. A few years from now, you can come back and you can look at the wine and say, how did this develop in the bottle?
Do you say it? Do you have wines here?
I do. I have.
You have a couple of wines.
A few of my favorites.
Yeah, because everybody does. Right? Everybody does.
And we hold back a certain amount of wines from every vintage of every type for the library, just so we have them to come back to, for some special event in the future.
That's
dig into the
right. I mean,
the library.
why not?
Exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
And that's what's kind of fun, because if you come back to a wine, especially this, this one does seem like a wine that would age well based on its taste today.
Exactly.
And I'm barely there. I'm not a sommelier. I'm not, schooled in anything. But I've gotten to the point where you taste the wine and you go, I think this one might be able to go for a little while, right?
Yeah.
And a winemaker that I know once said that the only way you're going to find out if a wine is good to go for more years than like a couple, because typical wines, red sheet, in 1 to 2 years, whites, in maybe half year, a year and a half, kind of thing, typical, but you know, the only way you're gonna find out is buy two. And
Sure.
5 years,
Sure.
open one.
By two or more, yes.
Yeah, and if you open one at 5 years and it's good, then you save the other one for even longer. And, you know, but then there's that whole, okay, what's the maximum maturity that you get out of it? Because they do, you know, sometimes that's 8 years, sometimes it's 20 years.
Well, like I said about planting vineyards, it's experimental. The same is true with aging wine. You hope for the best, you kind of get a sense of that, and shoot for something. One interesting thing about the wine, if you look at the blends on both the Colina and the Peral, you see a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Cabernet Franc, not Petit Verdot, because our Petit Verdot has trended in the way of being a varietal bottle. We're going to taste that next, but we always try to blend it.
And that's hard, but because the yield of Petit Verdot is typically, it's hard to get a really, really good yield, and the blunt or the varietal nature of it.
Yeah, and the nature of this Petit Verdot specifically, and again we'll get there, but it's a unique Petit Verdot that tends to want to stand alone. I'll just say that. That's what
I'm definitely.
Yeah. I should talk a little bit about what we have planted here at Crimson Lane. Red wine-wise, we kind of covered the base on that as far as Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. Your four Bordeaux blending grapes. They're pretty widely planted. We also have experimental plantings of Syrah and Nebbiolo, which are phenomenal.
Really?
They're very well. Yeah,
Okay.
they're very let's say sought after in the vault kind of wines, but they're super lovely, show a lot of promise. And then on the white end of things, Chardonnay, a pretty large planting. We talked about the different clones there, etc. Sauvignon Blanc, Petit Manseng we tasted, and then Albarino is our that is phenomenal.
I might have foreshadowed that earlier in the conversation. Yeah, because Albarino is that's a crazy varietal that has, that taste is very different. And
showing a lot of promise. I'll say that if you look at Spanish Albarino, how bright it is, how fresh it is, the beautiful fruit is presenting, we're not far from that. I mean, I think it really shows really well. And again, back to the type of grape we're planting, you know, Albarino, because it's from sort of a maritime climate in Spain, you get a thicker skin, looser cluster, resilient grape that can do great things.
yeah. So I can't wait for that. That'll be good. So when do you think you'll?
So we've actually, it's not on the menu right now. We've produced 2 different vintages, and we'll release the next vintage in spring 2025.
Excellent.
Yeah, so 23.
So now you can look forward to that vintage in 2025. So, but you got to get out in between then and
100%.
now.
100%.
So you got to get out and come here because there's some wines here that we can have for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Which is only a couple weeks away.
That's right. And so when visiting Crimson Lane, I'll also talk a little bit about that if it's all right. We tend toward being a reservation-only establishment, so it's really a great idea to leave a reservation, especially on the weekend. And then we have a couple different tasting options when a guest comes in, and we have our estate tasting, which is a nice cross section of what we produce, both whites and red, and you can tell the story, talk about the things we've talked about in this podcast today with vineyard, winery, and then present the wines. We're also offering a red wine tasting right now, which is the reds that we've tasted plus the Nebbiolo that I talked about. So it's a really nice way to explore, I think, what's really special about Crimson Lane, which is the ripening potential of the red fruit. And then we have some really great food options to accompany the wines, and a nice glass and bottle list as well. So.
Yeah, and the reservation thing is important. The proximity from here to Washington, D.C. is very close. You know, when you're talking about Fairfax, Virginia, very close. So you're within an hour kind of thing.
Exactly.
And so that's a big group of people that have, the opportunity to come out here. So a reservation makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and in fact, I think we have a reservation for this one.
You do?
This is right. No, we actually have a reservation. I got to send an email for the reservation. But I think that was purpose again. It was intentional. In that we all wanted to remember when it was and that kind of thing, and to block it out, right? And that's what you want to do. If you if you want to come here and drink some wine and have a tasting, definitely get a reservation.
Yeah, and it's an experience-driven visit. So I think when folks come in the Crimson Lane, we're not just jumping up to the bar, pour a flight, and run out of here. It's actually a conversational experience where it's a guided tasting, where you're hearing that backstory that we've been talking about for a while here right now. Like you're getting that context.
Yes.
Why does this wine smell? Why does it taste the way it does?
Yeah.
And what's the story behind it? Because wine is this special thing that we all want to know where it comes from, and where it comes from, really dictates, how much you're enjoying it, and what you know about it, and how you can build it into your own story, and that's what we're here for.
I really feel like the more you know about wine, the more you really enjoy it. And again, we talked about first imperceptions and doing the perceptions. But here at this winery, I love the fact that the environment is great. Okay, you've got good atmosphere, then you've got good wines, and then you've got a good learning experience at the same time. So, and you do see that in some wineries, they're not able to give you the attention to create that learning experience.
Yeah, we want to connect people to the site. I think we don't distribute our wines. Our wines are direct to consumer, right here in the tasting room.
Okay.
The only place we distribute our wines, one place, is the Inn at Little Washington. We're on the wine list.
The what?
The Inn at Little Washington. That's the area's only 3-star Michelin restaurant. And but that's it. You're not going to go to Total Wine or ... and find Crimson Lane on the shelf.
Right.
It's about coming here and learning and understanding and experiencing and connecting with the place.
That's why the wines,
Exactly.
It's like
And the experience here, I mean, it is, again, today, we're looking at the view, it's a little foggy, it's a little rainy, but it's a gorgeous place.
it's gorgeous even with the rain.
The tasting room is an exceptional place.
There's a fireplace over there.
There's a number of experiences from the bar to the table. We have an elevated private room experience where guests can celebrate something special.
Oh, I didn't see
Food
that.
pairings.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'll show you on the way out. And it's a great spot where you can have really wine-focused, beautiful experience in a beautiful setting. This tasting room is a phenomenal space. It's got sort of a elevated lodge feel. It was designed by an Israeli architect.
It's a nouveau lodge. Yeah, we talked about it being Californian but still lodging.
Exactly.
So it's definitely it's got that flavor, and it's beautiful inside. I mean, the woodwork is gorgeous. There's a lot of it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's oak everywhere, right?
It's a lot of it. But what I love about it too is that you've got all these little small spaces that you can have people in. So you've got tables of 4. You've got this. So there's a couch over here that you could so you could have 5 people at easily, and just kind of in a loungy kind of scenario like your family room. Or you could go out on the porch or the deck, the porch or the deck. And so there's a lot of those spaces, but they will go quickly. So that's why that's why the plug for the reservation, because I will tell you, I don't know if you've ever been to Texas, but Texas they're starting wineries now. And you're thinking, wait, Texas, it's so dry. And they actually have pretty decent wine, if you will. But the deal with that is, we went to one winery, we showed up without a reservation, and they said, hey, we're really sorry. They were nice about it, they said, hey, we're really sorry, but without a reservation, we can maybe fit you in 2 hours. 2 hours? We're like, no, but we ended up going to the same winery. We didn't visit their actual winery location. We went into a small town, and they had a storefront wine, and we ended up basically we ended up getting private wine tasting because nobody else was there at that time. And so, but there were people coming in and out for members. Oh, speaking of members, do you have members here?
We do, and I'll touch on a couple of your other points as well. We do have a maximum party of 6 in the tasting room.
Smart.
So what we want to do is be able to again go back to
I thought I was just thinking.
We can go back to the conversational part of it.
Yeah.
We can talk to folks. It's a wine-focused experience where we have this vibe of really understanding the site and the space and the wine themselves. And then we're not taking reservations because it's too busy or something. It's really because we want to guarantee, and we care a lot about the guest experience.
Right.
And we can really connect with them, put in this place and connect the wines. Until
and you get too much more than that, and it's basically an event or a party.
Right.
And you can't really speak to like too many people at once.
Right.
And if you want that personal experience, then you have to limit it to that.
Exactly. And we do have a wine club. It's currently waitlisted. It's a full club.
The best ones are
That's right. Exactly. We have a wonderful club. It's a great way for folks to invest in their wines and really understand what we're doing here and build some community around the wines. And it's a great club. We've all seen our club members every weekend in and out. And the room we're in right now
It is the wine club, right? Yeah, it's pretty secluded. It's pretty nice. So there's 2 areas like this. No, 4 areas like this, and then 3-4 cups inside the wine club scenario. I love that part of it. And I'm guessing you have different levels of membership. Do you have like a white membership and a red membership?
Not exactly. Something similar to that, but essentially the club, the way we're presenting it right now is that it's really 12 bottles a year. It's 6 bottles in spring, 6 in the fall. You're just committing to those bottles. We're picking the bottles, and then we have a variety of events around the release of those wines every year. We have club member events like just tomorrow and then Saturday we're doing a club event where we have some different sparkling wines coming that we've chosen for the holidays that our members have access to build their cellar and their inventory for the holiday season, right?
Because New Year's is coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we get to all sit around, taste, pair those wines up, learn a little bit more about them. We're going to present them from different regions, backstory, and get to know them.
I love that. Yeah, and that's And
So it's wine education, it's community, it's understanding our wines and getting some access to them. Some special wines, those wines I mentioned, the Nebbiolo, the Syrah, or those are in the club
available
application.
for the club members.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to bring people in, because you can have this first before we actually send
Exactly.
send it out to everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this one.
Right, so Petit Verdot.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad.
This has been really good. I've learned a lot, to be honest with you.
So Petit Verdot, traditionally blending grape in Bordeaux. It is a Bordeaux blending grape around the world, and in Virginia, showing a lot of promise as a variety grape for a while. And most folks are familiar with it. Petit Verdot tends to be pretty earthy and a hefty, focused wine.
A lot.
A lot of inky intensity when it comes to a blend. So even just a little bit of the blend is going to bring some color to the blend, actually, some darkness. This Petit Verdot particularly, I think, is really unique because we talked about clones earlier with Chardonnay, some of our other plantings here. Petit Verdot we have 2 clones planted. Clone 400, which is what you're going to see a lot of places. It's the typical blending Petit Verdot.
Okay.
And we have another clone called 1058, 1058. And that is a more nuanced, layered, elegant blend of Petit Verdot. So what I'm getting at with all this is that this blend is 50-50 of those 2 clones. So it's a different Petit Verdot. It's a little bit lighter. It's got a broader spectrum in terms of what it's presenting with aromatics and flavor. And we tend to bottle as a varietal. Again, it doesn't tend to work in the blend. It's a standalone grape.
Yeah.
And I think I've never before described a Petit Verdot as elegant or nuanced, but it is.
Yeah, those are not adjectives you typically use for
Exactly. So
that's
that brightness, some acidity, some freshness, but also some of that heft that you typically find in food.
And I love that you have the 1058. There's a lot of things that people don't realize about wines and the vines that we because you get your vines, there's vine cellars. And so, but you have to, all of that has to go together with the winery. But, the 1058 is the elegant portion of this, if you know.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna
Check it out.
Wow, it is.
So it's not just sort of focused and heavy.
Definitely cheaper, but on the other hand, it's not like that heavy leather, like tobacco kind of scenario. That.
Right.
The heavy one. It's good, a lot of flavor as well, so you're not missing the deep flavor.
Exactly. So again, all these reds, 2021 vintage, really excited about what they're offering.
Bordeaux really, it's kind of a standalone grape. So.
And it can take a lot of oak typically. I mean, some
Yeah.
folks in Virginia will throw American oak at PB, but not here. I think it's more, again, just harkening back to that balance, that freshness, acidity, the pairing, it's pairability of the wine with food. Nothing too overdone.
No, not at all. Not at all.
From the fruit speak.
Yeah, I've tasted some overlooked tea for that's like a lot. You know, and it's not a terrible glass of wine, but it's like a lot. Like you have to be really prepared for that. You know, yeah, it's like if you haven't developed your palate enough to get there just to drink it, you're done on some of those. But yeah, this one, you can sneak up on this one, which I love. I love that fact because you can teach somebody how to drink tea for who's not used to that kind of
Sure.
the great one. This is good. Oh my gosh, yeah. So
We're really happy to be presenting with red and the red tasting we mentioned earlier on our menu is going really well. So folks have the option of that when they come in.
I can imagine it is.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think I love about when you see the development of a region, right? The wine consumers develop with the region. So, it all starts out, everybody starts out together, if you will. And so when you get to a certain point, you could break out these. Like 10 years ago, you might not have been able to break these out because the consumers weren't ready yet. But now the consumers are like, give me more, and they're like, well, we've got these, and we think you're going to like them. And they are good, but all 7. We had 6. All 6.
Yeah.
All 6. Very good. Well produced, well thought out. And so going back to the theme, the intentionality comes through with all these intentionality.
Yeah. So a little bit about visiting Crimson Lane. We're open Thursday through Sunday. Again, reservations are available on the website, so you can follow the link. There's a visit page on the website. You can talk, make a reservation, come out, enjoy tasting, then enjoy some wine with a glass, with a bottle, some food options, etc.
You do that food.
We do.
You do. So
they
have
cheese boards, charcuterie board, empanadas, some beautiful shareable and pairable accompaniments for our wines.
There you go. And outside food is none.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't allow.
Because you have food here. Why would you bring food?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good to know. I mean, there's nothing worse than bringing your cooler in and somebody goes, sorry, don't. And obviously, I mean, this goes without saying, but we've said it a million times. Don't bring any other alcohol in because because the establishment gets in trouble. You don't.
Exactly.
The liquor laws are crazy.
That's exactly right.
What else do you think? We covered a lot.
We've covered a lot, and we're looking forward to this winter. We've got some really fun programs planned for different wine club events, some special food offerings, things like that. So check our website, check our social media for that. And then in the spring, we're looking forward to releasing some new wine. The Albarino, the Petit Manseng coming out in March.
Those are
April,
both.
May.
Yeah, I like that. So what's your handle on social media? What are you using?
Crimson Lane Vineyards, Instagram, Facebook, etc.
And this will be up on the @Journey More Often YouTube channel, and it'll be also on the Journey More Often website, journeymoreoften.today. So we'll have it there, and then the link will take you to the YouTube channel. So you can just go from one to the other. It will be, we always provide a little description. Might provide a little bit more on this one because we talked about a lot of different subjects, which is really great. I love that because I like to get educated as well as having that in the public domain as well. All right, we good to go?
We're good to go.
All right.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today with the Tipsy Tagalongs podcast. Chris, it's been great hanging out with you. We just spent, an hour 25 minutes talking about wine and barrels and fields and production and all sorts of stuff. So, this is one of those great experiences where you have to have the conversation, and you can have that conversation if you just show up, get a reservation, show up, and you'll be able to do that yourself. Next month, we're going to be having a private whiskey tasting again. It'll be our second annual, and we'll try not to knock the microphone off and break glasses on this one. But on the other hand, you're going to see some, and we brought some surprises, so we're going to have a couple of surprises for that one. But in the meantime, everybody, thank you very much, and enjoy life. Journey more often.